Stewart.
Hey, Jill.
I'm excited to talk today about a family that I've known for 5 years in Jefferson County, Ohio, which is, maybe an hour from here, close to the river, the Ohio River. And we recently went to their house and interviewed them and took drone footage of their property with a massive compressor station 600 yards from their country home. They also have a valving and gathering station. What's it called?
Metering and regulation.
Right, 200 yards?
Right, yeah, like right.
Or feet, not even yards.
Across the road from their mailbox, basically.
And Bob and Darlene Williamson are just great folks, like kind of one of those people you meet and then they just feel like instant family and they're so welcoming, accommodating. But we found out about their troubles with oil and gas infrastructure being built near their home from the local TV news about 5 years ago. Bev Reed, Yuri Gorby, and myself, and then at other times Ted Alka Frack Tracker, we all made contact and went and visited them and actually installed air monitors at their home, purple air monitors, because at that time they were not getting any response from the regulators, the Ohio EPA or ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. So we went and installed these air monitors. And after that, they also kept journals of their experiences and what they were smelling and hearing from the stations. And a lot of times, what they were experiencing was validated by the readings from the air monitors. And eventually they had enough data that they could get Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services to offer support and also get the regulators' attention. So yeah, there's a lot there. But I will say I've driven around the other side and been right next to the compressor station, but I actually seeing the drone footage and the massive footprint this compressor station has on the landscape there is just kind of mind-blowing,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was my first time there, and it was my first time meeting them. And it was when I got home and I am flying the drone and I'm seeing it on the little screen, but it wasn't until I got home and really looked at it on my computer that I realized just how massive this place was in comparison to their home. It just dwarfed their property. And to know that they've been experiencing such dramatic impacts from noise, from the VOCs, and also from the diesel or not diesel, but the exhaust of the big, I don't know what they are, turbines or engines that run the compressor station. To know that they've experienced that for so long and have done so much to try to advocate for themselves and just consistently run into barriers is very frustrating, just to experience it, vicariously, let alone to actually live that day in and day out.
And at one point we were standing there, and I hadn't heard it before, but there's retired racehorses, a racehorse farm right there, right? I mean, they're adjoining property. And so, there's stories about that as well, and the impacts to the animals in this interview we did with them. But yeah, I think what else could I say? Just that for 5 years now, I've wanted to be able to get their story out there because they aren't anti-oil and gas. Even now, they want to believe and hope that production can be done safely. Oil and gas development, fracking can be done safely. I have my doubts, but I respect, their opinion. And if they're going to do it and continue to do it, I wish it could be done safely too. But in my mind, from what I've seen, no research, we've got to find another way.
Well, yeah, it's, I mean, I don't want to say too much. I would like to let them speak for themselves, and
Yes.
but I will just say that it was very moving, and it was the first time since I started doing this work with you that I've gotten emotional, because just seeing firsthand the devastating impact that this has had on really good, honest, hardworking people and their life. It was hard to take. So with that, let's go.
Well, I'm going to do this first. And there's so much to tell, but Bob and Darlene Williamson, we're here in Salem Township in Jefferson County, Ohio. Beautiful, beautiful area. And both born and raised here, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And you lived here for how many years before fracking arrived?
We lived here 30 years before fracking arrived. 2015 was 30 years. And as a matter of fact, tomorrow, March 5th, 2025, it's 40 years that we've lived here. And in 2015, fracking moved in and changed our lives. We bought this house and it was only half the size it is now. One little garage. We've built a barn and put a pool in and a pool shed and just redid the whole house multiple times, as a matter of fact, like everyone does.
And this was your forever home.
Absolutely.
And so what has changed now for you?
The attachment to this is gone. The industry has taken that away from us. There's so much anxiety living here. We thought this was going to be the place where our grandkids would, come and keep their 4-H animals in the barn, and it's just the attachment is gone.
Where does that anxiety stem from?
This maybe what's right behind you there? Is that
Absolutely. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but the compressor station.
which is what?
Less than 600 yards to the southwest. And then the metering station is approximately 250 feet, which I think you're looking at right now. Metering and regulating station, and then we have a 30-inch gas line 60 feet to the east of us right here behind us.
And that's a high pressure.
Yeah, they told us it runs from 1,000 to 1,100 pounds PSI.
There's just so much I know and would like for you to share, but the video I shot, I was here 5 years ago. We came because we saw a TV news interview.
Correct.
And what was happening at that time?
Well, what was happening then was the compressor station, it was constant blowdowns. They are permitted, the compressor station is permitted 420 blowdowns a year.
What's a blowdown?
A blowdown is when all the gathering lines, which come from the well pads, all go to the compressor station. And then when they do a blowdown, it means that they're either doing maintenance at the compressor station or they have to clear that gathering line. And sometimes that involves
Pigging.
pigging. Yes. And they what they had told us, the industry, when we would have met with them multiple times, is that probably because of the access to the compressor station and how many lines there are, there's a pigging going on at least once a week.
And pigging is when basically it's like some kind of maintenance on the facility, but that's when you get spikes where you would smell things, where the volatile organic compounds, some of which are known carcinogens, are released into the air right beside your home.
That's right. That's right, because they're just blowing it. They spew everything that they're trying to capture. For some reason, I guess it's more economical for them, but they just spew that out into the atmosphere. And because where our home is located, in relation to that compressor station, we get all of that.
You're downwind.
Correct.
Prevailing wind.
90% of the time, you said?
I would say 80 to 90%.
And so what's that like when that happens here? Is it like just a smell, or do you have symptoms?
When the VOCs show up, the volatile organics show up on their meters, but methane is odorless, other than the fumes we get from the 11,000 horsepower running is what we've noticed, and it would be burning eyes, sore throat, headache, and when
Nausea.
yeah, the exhaust
Lethargic.
stacks is 20 inches or 2 feet is the exhaust pipe off of one of those, and there's 6 running.
And so when they do a blowdown, is that like, do you notice it for a day? Do you notice it for 3 days? Like, what's
An
that?
hour?
What's
I mean,
that
how long
like?
does it last? Yeah.
Well, it depends on how many blowdowns. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's very possible that in a day's time we could have 3 to 4 blowdowns.
Oh, okay.
So it's not just one blowdown.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on how many blowdowns they have as to how long the effect would last. So if it's all day, then the effects are all day. If they do a blowdown in the morning, and depending on wind direction, we may only feel that effect when it happens, and maybe for 1 or 2 hours. But it gets into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't it on your furniture, on your tables, covering your house, covering the water in
film.
your pool, covering your deck?
Yes.
But like an oily film?
Oily
Yes.
film. Yes. It's ruined our pool deck. You can't get a finish to stay on the pool deck. It's ruined it.
Okay, so 5 years ago, we saw your story on TV. We contacted you because at that time we had gotten a grant through the Heinz Endowments to install air monitors as a way to try to support those being impacted, and also to try to get a baseline and just to figure out what was going on, because the regulators have failed us. And that's, I think, one way we were able to help you. And you want to explain, like, when I met you, it's not just you. Your neighbors are
Our
having
neighbors
impacts
as
as
well.
well, and people have gotten cancers. And with the
Correct.
regulators, I think what I remember is they weren't calling you back.
Correct. We were not getting any participation at all. And the one thing we've learned in dealing with the gas and oil industry is that you have got to be your own advocate, because no one is out there to help you. We have reached out to multiple entities for help.
You're right. You're talking government agencies.
Absolutely. We have written our congressmen, we have written senators, we have talked on local level, we have met with our township trustees, we have talked with the Jefferson County Health Board, and we're getting nowhere. We get no help. They're not understanding the impact that this has on your health, on the community around you, and
The EPA's been here multiple times.
multiple
too.
times, the EPA.
But at that time, when I first met you, they weren't even responding. Like, you called them a
Correct.
dozen times, and then we put in these air monitors, and the
Correct.
data was showing and verifying your experiences of health impact, smells, odors, and
Correct.
then they responded. Or what?
Absolutely, we did. We actually got meetings then we were able to, form a meeting with the township, several meetings with our township, our local Salem Township. And then we had meetings, actually, the industry then reached out to us, and we had meetings with them, with the township. We had meetings with Jefferson County Health Board. The gentleman that runs the Jefferson County Health Board was here at our home several times. The EPA reached out to us, and they were here. So it's
And what was the general response to those meetings?
And did they ever smell it when they were here? Did any of the officials ever? And then when that thing was going off, like I was here when it was loud. But the videos you just showed me, I can't. I mean, it's literally like I'm standing next to a jet taking off in it, right?
right.
And
Right.
And that's different than a compression
That's
station.
correct.
That's a metering and
Regulation.
regulations.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 12-inch line from the compressor station and the metering station, which runs right through the woods, and then from there it goes into a 30-inch line, which goes down to Monroe County, which from there can go to Texas and New York City.
And that 30-inch line was put in via eminent domain.
Yes, on our neighbor, which
Yeah,
is right
right
behind
here,
us,
right
here.
didn't want it, but because they sell enough gas in the U.S. to warrant using an eminent domain to
Mm-hmm. And so with the compressors, my understanding is the compression station, the main issues that you suffered were from the blowdowns and kind of this oily film and the fumes. the main issue with this has been the noise. Is that correct?
Yeah, during construction and reconstruction twice, and since they've upgraded their pipe and they've insulated the pipe, which has drastically reduced the noise, which there's no compensation in any way for the 5 or 6 years that we've called their emergency number and had no response.
And living next to something that noisy is something that I don't think, unless you live next to an airport or something, you probably can't relate to. What's it like emotionally and mentally? I mean,
I guess for me, when we bought this place 40 years ago, there was nothing. It was so quiet, and that's what drew us to this area. It was a safe place to raise our kids, to have a family. We loved being out, and the quiet that we had. I mean, you would get up and hear the birds sing. Our neighbors here have horses, and you would watch the horses. But what this has done in relation to noise is it's taken all that from us, because there's no enjoyment in coming to this home anymore. We drive down the lane with anxiety, thinking, what are we facing today? Yep. Is it going to be, how many blowdowns are we having from the compressor station today? Or are they going to do maintenance here at the M&R station? It's constant traffic, and we live on a dead end lane. When you're coming down this lane, it's either you're coming here to our house or you're lost.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're going to this thing.
That's what's happened. It's increased our traffic immensely. I mean, it's nothing. 4:30 in the morning, there could be trucks sitting over here ready to work because they're having issues. And anytime we lose power, there's always going to be some maintenance go on, and there'll be multiple blowdowns from the compressor station to men working here and doing something over here. And they're constantly doing maintenance projects here. So it never ends.
But so when they're doing maintenance, it could be more than sound. I mean, don't they sometimes do they have to release pressure here?
Oh, the dust is unbelievable.
But there could be VOCs coming off of there too.
Correct. They're constantly, we have helicopters and airplanes that fly over that we never had before because they detect. What they're doing is checking for leaks.
Mm-hmm. We have the same thing over our farm. We have this black helicopter that flies really low over our farm once a month.
Right, and they do the same here. So, we never had that before. It was like, if you saw a plane, everybody ran out into the yard to see like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What is it? But now it's routine.
And so what do you want people to know? If your voice could be heard by infinite number of folks, what would you want them to know regarding oil and gas and fracking?
I think what the most important, I think, is that, when this all started here, and it started in 2011, that's when they were going around trying to get people to sign their contracts. And that's the horse.
Playing in the water.
Cleaning the water.
So tell them what's happening.
So what's happening right now is the horses next door, you hear that drumming sound. There's an oil film from the compressor station that lays on top of their water. And the horses will not drink the water because they sense that danger. So they constantly drum it with their hoof. They put their hoof in the barrel to stir the water to get a fresh drink.
You can hear it. Listen.
And they never did that until the compressor station went in. And then, we figured out what was going on because you can see the oil film on top of the water. So that's what's happening right now. But back to what I would want people to know from my personal experience is that when you start into this, nobody knows. I mean, I'm not educated in gas and oil. I'm much more educated now than I was before. But I think what I would want them to know is to beware. Don't trust everything that the industry is telling you, because every time along the way, we've been deceived.
Don't be naive to them, because what
No.
they say never does happen in the way that they say it. We was
No.
naive and trustworthy, and that's the way the people around here are.
Right.
But
Mhm.
now we are educated and very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impacted your whole life, your retirement. Like, so
Yes.
you've had health impacts,
Yes.
noise, light, all the pollution. And I remember at that time too, you were just saying how you were worried because you didn't want to watch your grandchildren here, which is what you set up this place for. Like, that's why you have a
Right.
pool. So
Right. And we don't have our kids here. The grandkids are not here near as much as they used to be. They don't stay the night because they wake up with headaches. So we can't do that to them.
And it was
Mhm.
just a month or two ago that she woke up in the middle of the night and said she was having a heart attack. And so we took off and went to the local fire hall, which they said we have to get her to the emergency room, which they took her to the emergency room. And after she was in the emergency room, they come out and said, we are going to keep her overnight and monitor her, but we don't really see any heart issues. And they kept her overnight, and she did stress tests and everything for their heart. And the doctor come back and said the only thing we seen was she had depleted oxygen in her blood. And I believe that's due to the depleted oxygen that she was getting through the middle of the night. And they said her heart is fine. She did not have a heart attack. But that's the only thing. He said the only thing that showed up was her oxygen level in her blood was low. And that's what caused that.
So, are you moving? What's happening?
I know.
What are you gonna do?
We would love to move because our attachment to this is gone. They have taken that from us. It's not here anymore. And again, going back to being deceived, the industry promised that they were going to purchase our home from us because of everything that we have to endure. Well, we've had appeals against them. We have taken every avenue that we know to take. And they decided, nope, we're no longer interested in your home. So now we're back to square one. What do? We don't know what to do. We don't know where to reach out.
So you've had your American dream kind of trashed.
Yes.
What have you gotten for it? What
Any
benefit?
compensation?
No compensation.
No. I will tell you, the only compensation we got was we received a check for $1,700 from a company that originally built this M&R station. And Spectra, because they silted our pond in, which is behind our home here, completely silted our pond
What
in.
does that mean?
What that means is they were putting in this pipeline. And so when it would rain, they set up no barriers for silt fence for the runoff. So when we would get rain, all of the loose dirt that they just dug up ran right down into our pond because they set up no silt barrier. There was this film all over our car that would not come off. We had to get our car detailed because we couldn't get it off of our car when they were building this. So the bill for what we wanted was over $5,600 and they gave us $1,700. That is the only monies we have been compensated.
What would you want to happen now? Like, at this point, what?
Well, there has to be a law. So there has to be a law out there that states they cannot put this industry this close to a community. Why isn't there a law that protects the community and not just the industry? Because the EPA does not protect the community. The EPA protects the industry.
Yes.
It's not there for the community. It's there for the industry. And so don't kid yourself on that. We had 2 women from the EPA sit right at our dining room table and tell us, we have no jurisdiction here. This is all political.
Gas and oil self-regulates, which they turn into the EPA, their emissions they put out. And if they go above and beyond that, the EPA just gets a bigger pay from them. That's the fine. If you go above and beyond EPA regulated emissions, then you have to pay more.
And that compressor station, they get to self-regulate. They get to hire someone to come in, do the inspection,
Do the testing.
do the
verify
testing, And then they just say to
Third
the
party.
EPA, oh, we're compliant. And that's all you ever hear from the industry is, we're compliant. Well, compliant isn't good enough.
Well, before we wrap this up, I want to go back to the air monitors. You've installed air monitors. What have the findings been from those?
We have had air monitors, some type of air monitor in our home since 2020, the fall of 2020. And they've changed over the course because they've, Dr. Yuri Gorby and Jill, the companies that have developed these, it's gotten better and better over the years. That's how many years we've been dealing with this. So they've changed, and we still have monitors in our home. And what that does is those monitors inside our home are for particulates. They're not for VOCs. But we have an EPA backed monitor outside our home, and that is for the VOC spikes. And so Dr. Yuri Gorby does monitor those for us. And there's been times when he has called us and said, you have to get out of your house. Shut your furnace off. You have to leave, and I'll call you and let you know when to come back in. Because the VOCs were over 12,000.
And like normal is 100 or normal or what's like baseline?
Honestly, I'm not that versed in this, but I will say I think anything over 1,000 parts per
billion.
Right, then they get very concerned about. And ours was at 12,000.
Wow.
12,000, not 1,200.
12,000.
I remember that.
And we had to leave our home. And then Yuri called us, and it was in the wintertime, and he said, open your windows, shut your furnace off. We've even had Williams, who is the company who runs the compressor station, call us and say, you're probably going to want to leave your home today. So, I mean, you can see in what we're saying that it's real. So when they tell you, just like the M&R station here, we were told, it's just going to be a little building. You're never going to know it's there. They sat in our home and told us that, and it's not true. You can see that it's not true.
And hear that it's not true.
And hear that it's not true.
Yeah.
And the compressor station, it's the same thing. I mean, they told us that, oh, this is the loudest it's ever going to be. And, you know, through additional shots, you're going to see that it's really loud.
And they are drilling around here still a lot.
Fracking wells.
Fracking
Yes.
wells are still drilling fracking wells, which means we know that the more wells they drill, they're going to need another compressor. So
Yep.
they had 5, they're up to 6, and they'll go to however many they need to get the gas. And the most disappointing part is most of this, yeah, they're regulatory and they're under regulation, but the disheartening part is most of it gets sent to a coast and liquefied and sent overseas for their profit.
So it's never, even though they sold it to us on energy independence, that's not what this is about.
Which
No.
we are too rural to have natural gas in our homes. Nobody here has natural
Nobody.
gas, even though we have a 30-inch line, which is by far the most economical heating fuel, 3 times less than what electric would be. Yet we don't have the opportunity to have natural gas because we're too rural, and it would be too far to run a line to feed just one home. So the cities and the towns have it, yet we have the big gas, but we can't utilize gas.
So,
Not to mention how much of it goes to plastic and
Right.
petrochemical,
right.
which is something that I think, in my opinion, was one of the biggest deceptions of the industry, was that it was kind of sold to all these communities for energy independence, but we know that a significant portion of it actually goes to plastic development.
That's right.
I just read an article, I believe it was 30% of all natural gas comes from Ohio, West Virginia, in the world, not the country, the world.
Comes from this tri-state
Yeah.
area.
So we live with it, but the oil company profits from it.
And it's stolen your way of life. I mean, it's ruined your life
Yes,
on
it
some
has.
level. I don't even like to make that statement, but
It is the truth, though. It is the truth. I mean, and I just want people to beware. I mean, I have written editorials on it. I have I have been on the news about it because I think it's so important for people to realize when they come knocking, you're best not to answer the door, because they're going to tell you things that sound wonderful, and it's not that way at all.
They should relocate you, I believe, and
I do too.
at least compensate you for the depreciation of your home to where you have the ability to leave. Plus, play, I believe, transportation cost, or there should be some regulation before you put this in. You need to go to these people and offer to buy their home, plus moving cost, and then sell it for whatever they can get out of it.
And it's not just us that's affected. It's our neighbor here, and it's the one next to him, and next to him, and the next road over. It's not just us, and it depends on the wind direction. Maybe it's not us today. Maybe it's the next road over. But it's not just us. We have smelled that clear up in East Springfield.
Which is how far?
Which is probably 3 to 4 miles, from here on the main route. So it's not just us that's affected by this.
And one other point. You were not anti-fracking, anti-oil and gas when this came.
No.
You supported the industry at the beginning because
We
or
didn't
believed
know.
them at least, right?
We did. We believed everything they told us. When they came in and, they give you the big spiel about you're going to be rich, you're going to be getting a big monthly check, and you're going to be rich, and don't believe them.
We're not trying to shut the industry down,
No.
but we do want them to be not even compliant, because compliant is way under.
It's not good enough.
Just kind and considerate and do it right. It can be done right.
It can be. While we put up with it day to day, they reap whatever benefit there is, which is very little. But yeah, and they're going to tell you, oh, we support the community. This is how much money we've donated.
And it doesn't even really help at the state level either. I mean, I know in Pennsylvania in 2023, I believe, Pennsylvania was the second largest producer of natural gas in the country, and it only added 1.3% to Pennsylvania's GDP.
Yeah, and they don't tell you that.
No.
They tell you, like, this has the capability. They use those types of words in their articles, and people look right over that. They're not reading the article for what it is.
Yeah, a lot of that sales pitch is built on these rosy-colored projections made by economic impact studies that are created by consultant firms that are hired by the industry.
Yep. Right.
And the thing about it is that, like, local politicians and local community members, they hear that and they just think, well, I mean, that's going to be great. And
Right.
they never question it.
And that's what happened.
So that was an intense interview, but I also was so impressed with how well they can communicate their experience, very powerfully. And then Bob took us to his basement, where it's kind of his trophy room with his fish and his deer trophy heads, whatever you call them there. And this is one thing that I think will resonate with a lot of people here locally, how fracking has affected their hunting, their fishing, their
Outdoor recreation.
Yeah. And also for a lot of people, they hunt deer and fish because they survive on it. They still eat it. They're still reliant upon that as a, food source. And so, yeah, he goes into details about how it's impacted that part of his life as well.
We take the trees off of it, and there's nothing to hold the soil back. Soil erosion would be a big thing going into our streams and creeks and ponds. The erosion, once they take away the trees that hold back the soil and the topsoil, and then they penetrate it, digging a ditch and a line, which is huge. Then you have unstable soil, and the rock layer underneath it was interrupted anywhere, and so out of that, you get moisture down there, and you get a slip, and the slip goes downhill, and creeks are at the bottom of the hill, and that That's where the erosion goes in, which isn't good for fish or anything else, hellbenders or anything else. It's a pollutant that goes into, the water, and not only that, I mean, it's taken away a lot of trees out of very remote areas, big expanses of wood, and it just takes the trees away and like Stuart says, then it's an invite for invasive species to come in and take over. Yeah, there used to be expanses of woods where we live, and I can remember as a kid I would go out deer hunting and I could walk a mile in any direction, of where I was living and have permission to hunt and a lot of woods there. But now it's cut up as they take and make either a 80 or 100 foot or 90 foot right away. Everything there is gone. And so as far as it being more of a wilderness area, it's a chopped up, or forests are chopped up into little sections, and those trees I don't believe will ever be back. I mean, as far as our grouse populations, and we it's been, I would say, 15 years since I've seen a grouse. Yet as a kid, me and my brother and my dad would hunt them, and we would jump 20 or 30 in a day. They're gone, and I'm not sure if the gas and oil industry is the cause of that, but it's just broke it up is what it's done. It's I don't even know how to phrase it, of taking a nice big chunk of woods and then cutting a path through it. Then one thing that I have noticed is now with a lot of four-wheelers and stuff, there's a right-of-way for them to ride on, and so out of that they ride their four-wheelers and whatever across it and down the hills, and then when you see that, then you see erosion happening again. It runs right down the path of where the tire tracks are, and so I don't believe any of it's good. I mean, it's nice to go somewhere where there isn't gas and oil, to where you can see a forest, on a Dalton. Yeah, and I mean, even here, when I would hunt locally, based on wind direction, I mean, there would be times that you would get sick and have to leave, and that's not good. And I'm sure what we're breathing in isn't good for these animals either. But they have no choice, and they have nowhere to go. And like I said, I could walk miles through woods. Now you walk a couple hundred yards to a gas line, which is clear cut, and I'm not really sure what impact it has on the whitetail. Adapt to anything. They can live in town and they can live in little tracts of land. They're that smart, but it has taken away something that'll never be back again, which is a forested area here in southeast Ohio, and also into West Virginia and Pennsylvania and these big gas and oil states, into this shale formation. And it will never be the same again.